Peace and love on this day and every day through Father God Yahweh, for this is the Rise Family Systems Podcast. I appreciate every one of you taking the time out of your day, whether you're taking your kids to school, taking your man to his job, or getting dropped off at your job. If you're at the house, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever way you are taking in this information, thank you for taking me on this journey. This journey, I hope, gives you some golden nuggets, something that will help you strengthen your family, strengthen your relationship, strengthen yourself and your community, because systems, we believe, all results come from systems. All right. So that is the main theme, and we're going to break down what that means as we move forward. Because here at Rise, we believe that every result comes from a system, and a lot of those systems, unfortunately, especially the way I grew up, are negative systems. Right? You can have systems like a crisis system. Now, a crisis system characteristics are they never plan ahead. You ever know anybody who never plans ahead? Right? And why do they never plan ahead? Because they're constantly feeling overwhelmed. Right? A crisis system is prevalent in low income, impoverished, or black neighborhoods because of the system of oppression that causes people to feel like they are always in crisis. And so those people wait until the last minute, they procrastinate, they are constantly reacting instead of preparing, and they're living in emergency to emergency, right? And so if you have a proper system and you know somebody who's working in a crisis system, you can help implement a proper system into their lives. So hopefully they don't have to be in crisis anymore. The issue with that is that your mindset also plays a great role with how or what system you operate under. So you got to be mindful of your mindset as you reflect and look at what kind of system you're currently operating in, because we are all operating under some system. Another negative system that probably one of the ones I like the least. I'm not going to use the H word because I feel like hate is a hateful word used by hateful people, just like ugly is an ugly word used by ugly people. So I try to refrain from use of both those words, but I say people who use a blame system are the most difficult people to maintain a relationship with, because there is zero accountability. There's zero accountability for someone who has a blame system. You have to look at yourself as the common denominator in each and every situation, because you, at the end of the day, are the only person who was always involved with every situation you ran into. A situation with police, a situation with a girlfriend, a situation with your parents, a situation at the job. You are the common denominator in all of those situations. But when you're blaming constantly, oh, they won't let a black man do anything, right? Oh man, they won't never do it because I'm too loud, or maybe you want to change how loud you are. But you are the common denominator in all aspects of your life. And I'm not saying you have to be fake. I'm not saying that you have to change who you are. What I am saying is that you have to be accountable for every situation you ever find yourself in. Otherwise, there's no personal growth. And that's our mission in life, is to become. We always need to grow so we can become the person who can live out the dream. And we got to become that person. Like, I can't be, in my younger days, I wanted to be a rapper. I can't be a rapper if I've never picked up a pen. Some people believe you can do it, but no, you have to develop your craft. Yes, freestyle is important, but it has to be a combination of the two to really develop the artist, right? Everything you do, if you want to become that person, there's a level of practice and work that goes into it, right? So blaming is not going to work, because nothing changes, because responsibility is always placed outside of yourself if you're someone that blames, right? Our goal at Rise Family Systems is to create strong families, because strong families don't happen by accident, right? Systems create strong families. Successful students don't happen by accident. It's purposeful. It's systems. It's knowing when you have to study, when you have to do the work, blocking out time and consistently doing those things. Having systems allows you to do those things, right? Healthy relationships, all intentional choices, family and financial success, all based on systems. So today's episode is every result has a system. I don't care if it's a positive result or a negative result. Most positive results result in positive systems. Most negative results result from negative systems. And by the end of our time together, you'll understand how or why some families seem to strive while other families always seem to struggle, right? Because it's systems. And the systems you build today can shape your legacy for families and future tomorrow. So everything you do now is important. But once again, the mindset is where it starts. Let's get started. A lot of people ask me, Rise what? Why? I catch you on the internet. I see you on my timeline. You're always talking some rise this and that, and yeah, an abolitionist and all this other stuff. And like, I don't even understand what you're saying half the time. Like, what and why? Why and what? What are you doing? You trying to go viral or something? So the easy answer for that is that God put in my heart to do this. The difficult answer to that is to really figure out where it stems with, because I believe my roots for creating Rise run really deep. Like, I've always been a student. Before I went to school to teach, before I even went in the classroom, I was a student of the streets. But before I was even a student of the streets, I was a student of my household. My mom and my dad. I studied my mom. Every single evening, Monday through Friday, my mom would get her outfits out, make sure they are ironed and pressed, get some matching shoes. But the matching shoes did not go on in the morning. In the morning, she put on sneakers. She put them the shoes in the bag, because this is excuse me. This is New York City, y'all. We got to walk up and down stairs. We got to walk up and down blocks and blocks to get to the train station. We got to walk upstairs to get out of the train station. We got to walk to the job. Ain't nobody got time to be in heels and doing all that stuff. So I observed how my mom was ready for anything that went down during the excursion on the train. She had them sneakers on. But then she transformed into them heels so she would look the part. She put them red bottoms on so she would look the part when she went in the building. That's why she was what she was when she was working. She was, God bless my mom, a legal assistant who never went to school to be a legal assistant, right? Did all the copyrights and trademarks for the company. She used to bring home DC Comics, catalogs, all the materials from all the different things that she trademarked and copyrighted, and bring home all the stuff. God bless my mom's, like, from small Selma, Alabama to big New York City to do that and be a legal assistant downtown 42nd Street. God bless. That was a great lesson I learned from my mom. I also learned from my pops. My pops didn't work, had to get suited up and nothing like that, but he did work, and every night he got up at the same time, left at the same time, and pretty much got home in the morning at the same time. He worked overnight. But his routine was real simple. Get up, get ready, and go. Man, I remember a lot of times he would go to sleep. Well, he'd go to sleep when he get home, and in the morning, work all day on whatever little thing he wanted to work on, the car or whatever, work on the house or whatever. Then around 6, 7 o'clock, you might have a little drink and be like, yo, I gotta get my beauty sleep. Go shut it down for another 4 or 5 hours so he can go and get up in the morning and be right. That was his routine. and it worked for him, right? So my mom and my dad had systems that worked for them, but just because your parents have systems, they never really said, this is the system that works for us, right? They didn't sit down and give us game on the systems, but they were systems nonetheless. And so as I got older, I realized those systems didn't work for me, but I did realize that we all have systems. Like after I, started studying the streets more, I realized that there's systems in the streets too, And I watched a lot of them with the runners. Like there were number runner systems. I saw them yellow and those pink and all the different cars that went back and forth, and running those numbers back and forth. I saw how they had the different drug dealers had the different blue top, red top, green top. And those systems, especially the drug dealer system, work for people whose mindset said they prioritize money. They don't necessarily prioritize their life, their actual living, right? They didn't value themselves quite as much as someone who maybe wanted some more stability and went to work every day, right? But I studied that stuff that went on in the streets, and then when I got to school, I noticed how people would separate themselves, right? There would be people who but they didn't separate themselves by race or gender or nothing like that. They would separate themselves by what they prioritize. So those people who prioritized athletics, they would separate themselves and click up. Those who prioritize academics, they would separate themselves and click up. Those who prioritize socialization and being popular, they would separate themselves and click up. Right? And really would you find people moving from one clique to the other? Because basically, whatever you prioritize becomes your agenda, right? And all those observations as I was young became the roots to what I'm doing now at RISE. RISE stands for Resonating in Sovereign Energy. And so what that means to me is, and what sovereign energy means to me is that your energy is not based on an algorithm that's given to you and fed to you. It's not based on what people in your household are doing. It's not based on what people in your community are doing. It's not based on the clique and what they tell you is going on. Sovereign energy is based on your individual preferences and your individual beliefs. And if you can have an identity in Christ, then your individual beliefs then start to put you on a path of doing exactly and becoming exactly what God has you put on this earth to do. And that is a sovereign energy that allows you to have the blinders on to what goes on in the world. A lot of people like myself who get to that point, they start watching the news because they don't want to be distracted by the white noise, right? Because there's always going to be noise outside of you. But once you figure out exactly what you want to do, you put those blinders on and you can resonate in sovereign energy. Pardon me. So as I got older, like I said, I continue to develop and organize this mentality. So the more I observed, the more I realized something that stayed with me my entire life. People's lives almost always are a result of the systems that are constantly followed. So whatever system you're following, your life is going to look like that, right? And so if your mom or your dad did something or had a system that they used to get by, and you use that same system to get by, then your results are going to look a lot like your mom and dad. If your mom and dad did well and you use that same system, then you're probably going to do well, right? Systems are so important. And this whole show is based on what systems can we use, should we use, or will we use, and how do we differentiate each system. So for years, I heard people in the hood say, The struggle is real. And I took the bait. I believe the struggle was real for a real long time. I used to say it all the time. Nah, man, what's up, bro? Struggle is real, bro. You know? And wasn't until recently, wasn't until I really started to identify who I was in Christ that I was able to move on from saying things like the struggle is real. Because the struggle is only as real as you make it. If you believe the struggle is temporary, because I understand, we all face hardships. Families face hardships. Individuals face hardships. But that doesn't mean it has to last forever. We have to understand that any hardship, any struggle, once again, if you have your identity in Christ, you know it's preordained. And that struggle is preordained to help you become the person that you are meant to be. And so you can go down the path that you're meant to go down. Everything happens for a reason. And then you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. If both those things are true, you have to say, all right, I'm going through this. What do I have to learn from this? How do I become better from this so I don't have to go through this again? But if the struggle is real, you're going to go through it. You're probably going to try to take something, forget about it. Then you're going to end up right back in the same situation again. So changing your words, changing your thoughts are so important in being able to create systems. Because otherwise, you're just stuck in a system that you don't even realize you're stuck in. And that system is one of repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. Another perspective is the one about having faith and having doubt. It's really the same perspective because at the end of the day, faith and doubt are two sides of the same coin, right? The person who says the struggle is real is usually working on the doubt side, right? They doubt that things are ever going to get better. So because they doubt that things are ever going to get better, they're not going to do the things that are needed for things to get better because they don't believe things are going to get better, right? Someone who doubts, they're not going to probably invest the money, right? Because they doubt things are going to get better. Somebody who doubts is probably not going to take the time to go back to school to get their education because they doubt things are going to get better. But someone with faith, that changes everything. I'm struggling now, but my struggle is temporary. So I'm going to go back to school to get my education. I'm going to invest some money. I'm going to keep saving and building and doing the things now in my struggle that makes me better so that there can become a time where the struggle is no longer real, but the struggle made me so strong that I won't never have to struggle again and be a young boy. You feel me? Real talk. Now, faith is not pretending everything is going to be easy, right? I got a sister who always says, because I told him one time when we were going back and forth that, do you always just skip through the dandelions and the daisies like everything's all good? Like, is that like always the way you take things? But at the end of the day, if you have faith, you're able to just skip through the daisies and the dandelions like everything's going to be okay, right? I mean, at the end of the day, though, my sister put the time in to be able to have that kind of faith. She put 30 years in the MTA. You put 30 years in the MTA, after you retire, you get, I think, 75% of your 3 highest years, right? And if you can squeak out a good 90 to 100K on those top 3 years, then when you retire with $75,000 a year. So you earn the right to skip through some daisies when you can retire like that, because it's not a bad life. I mean, it's not the life that, most of our businessmen want, but it's not a bad life, especially if you living in a house that's already paid for, right? So, faith is believing. So you ain't got to be that dude or that girl who's skipping through the dandelion like, everything's going, because that's not me. I'm not that person. But my faith allows me to believe that things are going to get better. So because I have the belief that things are going to get better, I'm constantly doing the things presently that would allow my future to look like, okay, I'm looking like a boss a little bit. I like the way this looks. And I'm NBA Youngboy on them. I'm never being broke again on them because I know what the struggle was. It was temporarily real, but I've done the things that will not allow me to go back there. Right? That's structure. That's belief. Right? That's why we exist here at Rise. Right? I'm a math teacher, but I'm not simply teaching math. I teach science, but I'm not simply teaching science. We teach financial literacy, but we're not just simply teaching financial literacy. We also teach parent empowerment, but we don't just teach parent empowerment, right? Everything we teach is built on a system. The system is, first, observation. At the end of the day, all I want to know, if you're going to have a membership at Rise, all I want to know is how I can help you. I want to know everything about whether you're trying to improve your family life, whether you're trying to improve your academic or your child's academic life, whether you're trying to improve your financial life, whatever it is you're trying to improve. I want the information about it. I want to be able to observe your situation so that I can then, after the observation, then I can organize those thoughts. And that organizing of thoughts is the plan, is the system. So I have to be able to see what's going on first. After I see what's going on, I can then make a plan by organizing my thoughts and then applying the system. The application of the system is where the change is seen, right? When you apply the system, after you observe the situation and then organize those thoughts to create a system, and once you apply the system, instantly you should see change, right? Because you've taken everything you've noticed, right? And you've organized all those thoughts to create a system that works. Our next episode is going to be about family household systems. I'm going to go into how I went from a mess to a blessed house just by applying a system that allows everyone in the household to have accountability for their specific duty, right? And where there's no confusion about who does what, how it should be done, why it should be done, right? Going into family meetings and how to orchestrate those, right? How to orchestrate a family meeting to create a family system is our next episode. So please stay tuned for that, right? But when you're observing, the most important thing is to be honest, right? Because no family is perfect. No parents are perfect. No kids are perfect. Your cousins, sis, no one's perfect. You have to be able to constructively observe and also be reflective of your own stuff, right? So you got to be able to understand that people aren't perfect, but everybody has good and bad qualities. You got to be able to recognize the good as well as the not so bad before you start to organize those thoughts like who's good for what based on your observation, right? Like, there's no way I'm letting my daughter who gets all crazy about mess to do the picking up of the dog's poop and the taking out of the trash. It's just, I know you better than that. I know you better, right? My son don't like poop and trash, but he's more equipped to do those things. So that's his responsibility. So this is an example of how the observation portion of the system is the most important and first thing before you can organize those thoughts, create a system, apply it, and then if everything goes well, the final part is you multiply it. You increase the productivity in your own home, or you spread that productivity to other homes that's working on a crisis system, working on the blame system, your cousins, your sisters, your aunties, whoever you know that needs a similar system, you multiply. That's our job here on earth, is to sow seeds. We should be all sowing seeds so we can increase and multiply. That's God's duty for us, right? And so you organize your life around principles, then you'll see how things work. Apply those principles consistently, and they will become habits. And habits become systems. That is what we want to do. Because every lasting result, every single lasting result, started with a good system. I wish they would have told us the systems they had in Egypt, right? To create those buildings. But I'm sure they burned all those, any documentation of that. But those things are still here, right? Great systems last, right? Anything great has longevity. Anything that is great had a great system to produce that longevity, right? A lot of things we have now are really quick and temporal because there are no strong systems underneath them. But strong systems create longevity. Longevity creates legacy, right? Anyone who's ever done anything great. LeBron didn't accidentally play basketball for 24 years, right? There were systems involved in his greatness, right? So we have to be conscious of those systems so we too can create greatness and build systems that last. As we close, I want to let you know, every strong family is built on a strong system. If you ever wish your home felt more organized, or your children felt more confident, or your family had a clearer direction, the Rise Family Success Toolkit was created just for you. You go to risetheculture.com. risetheculture.com. And you can download your Family Success Toolkit for absolutely free. It is the first step that I suggest you take in building your family legacy, in creating a system in your household. And once you start creating a system in your household, you're going to be like, wow, this works great. I want to extend this into other parts of my life. And then you're going to start extending systems at your job and extending systems in your relationship and have systems all over, and things are going to move like systems are built to do. They're going to move productively, just like science says. They're going to keep moving until some outside force stops them, right? That's inertia. But you can't have any inertia without building a system to create the movement, right? So I want you to download it for free. Begin building a system that helps family today while creating a legacy tomorrow. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I appreciate you coming out for the first episode of Rise Family Systems. Check us out next week. Until then, you know what the deal is. Rise the culture.